This month's art journaling page was inspired by something I saw on Instagram where a woman took a Sharpie or some kind of marker and just made these lines next to a junk mail envelope window. And then she ended up cutting it out and using it as a vase on her art journaling page. So that was my inspiration this month and what I wanted to do. I have to say that I struggled tremendously with this page this month, and I just couldn't quite get it to do what I wanted it to do. So here I'm trying to cut out some florals. I'm using some of my gel prints so that I can stamp right on that and have a background and not necessarily have to paint in any of my flowers. These gel prints were made on copy paper, so it was super thin. Eventually, I ended up gluing them to some cardstock just to thicken them up a bit and give them a little bit more body so they weren't flopping around so much. This stamp I actually did directly onto the cardstock, and then I utilized some of the Distress Oxide inks to actually color that one in. Not completely, just a little bit. I think I even sprinkled a little bit of water on it at some point. But here I'm laying out that vase that I made on different background pages. Some that I have not completed in my book that had something on the background already, some that were blank pages. I'm trying to rearrange flowers to see what I like, what I don't like, and this is what my art journaling students will do this month. They're going to just experiment and play. Here I'm doing a transfer onto a tag, and the reason why I'm using that particular tag is because it is also a heavier weight paper, so my flower won't flop around. This was from the Clementine transfer from Christmas last year, and I did it on cardstock, and then I cut it out, and I have to say this one I loved. I don't necessarily completely love it with the black and white background, though, on the vase. So I chose to use that black and white background on a page that I had not completed yet that was something a little bit more colorful. But that's what I want my students to do, is utilize this technique, but do it in their own way. So here I'm cutting out another envelope. This one I'm not going to turn it into a vase. I want to embellish the front of the envelope. I'm using another jelly print, and I had to open my envelope up so that I could trace where I needed to cut out this window. I used just a skewer to kind of create an impression on my gel print so that I could see where to cut it out. It was a little hard because my print was made using a metallic paint. So I did cut a slit right in the center so that I would be able to get my scissors in there and cut around the window portion. Then I'm using that awesome Oohoo stick to glue this in place. I could have done a little bit better job of cutting, but like I said, I struggled with this page this month. So I'm just trimming off the excess paper. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do with this, so you'll see me kind of try and position it on a page. Thankfully, my colors, I tend to stay kind of all the same colors when I'm creating, so this totally worked on another page that I hadn't finished. I knew that this inside portion of the window was going to show, and I didn't want it to be bright white, so I'm just adding a little inking to that. I realized that the back of the page was going to show on the opposite page, so I added a little bit of inking to that as well. It may not stay that way in the long run, but for now, it's not some bright white piece of paper on that side. So I decided I'm going to glue this in place. That's a decision, yay! Sometimes it's just like that. I struggle with, I don't know exactly what I want to do, or I feel like I have to create a page for class, and I'm just not always in that creative mood. So I try to utilize some things that I had made recently. I made these little circles using some gel prints. I have these die cuts that never seem to get used. So I thought I'm going to embellish this window a bit. I'm actually going to add a word, and I used some scrap cardboard, and I'm attaching that sticker to the cardboard, and then I'm going to glue that piece of cardboard behind this flower and the window. And that's going to create the tab that will let me open and close this window. I'll give you a better look at that at the end of the video. One of the things that I realized was the reason why I didn't like my little black and white vase so much was because my background was too busy. So I decided to just do a solid color paint. And also I decided that, it doesn't have to be a vase and it doesn't have to contain flowers. I can simply make it a pocket. So I went ahead and I made another one, trying to utilize a straight edge here so I could keep my lines a little straighter. But I have to say, I just don't have the patience for that. And this was going really slowly for me. So if that's important to you, you can certainly use a ruler. Now, what I did end up trying to do was to trim it equally on all sides so that I could use it pretty much anywhere on my page as a pocket. Evidently, I had to use that piece of cardboard again because I must have lost my ruler on my desk somewhere. Anyway, this is really about concept, so you could make this even wider. It doesn't have to be quite so thin. But I definitely like it better on this solid background as opposed to with all the other things going on. And this way, now I have an opportunity to embellish the entire page even more and to slip some other things in the pocket. So what I want my journaling students to do this month is to make it their own and add other embellishments to it. I am stamping here with some white ink using a distress stamp. I stamped a little ladybug from the new IOD Timely Tales stamp. My Uhu glue wasn't sticking very well because I kept trying to put things in the pocket. So I went ahead and I glued the parts that weren't sticking with Titebond. And I had some leftover tags. So these tags either just have a stamp on the background with a transfer over, or is simply decoupage paper. And I went ahead and enhanced these with a little bit of ink. So you could use multiple other things that you have, whether those were die cuts or other circles from the gel prints or leftover words or even papers that you have from somewhere else. One of the things that bothers me most, though, I don't care for the white string. So I like to try to tint that. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting it on my stamp pad and holding it in place with the dauber and then pulling the string through so that it gets a little color on the string and it's not that bright white. I added a little bit more stamping. I do feel like there's an area to the left right there that needs something. But I just got to the point where I had had enough and I needed to stop. So here I'm showing you how you can flip that window open. These were the other pages where I used the cutout window as a vase. But mainly, I want you to just take the concept and create your own pages with these. Embellish it whichever way works for you. If you found this at all helpful or simply enjoyed it, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button and possibly subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Gingy with Louisiana Creations.